Good news, the superpower serum worked and you're the first super. Bad news, your powers have considerable downsides.
Mr. Stevens was ready for the press conference. The research team refused to show, legal had advised against it, and I wasn't even sure that I should be outside of the lab. I now had the strength of 100 men. It was a long, rigorous process. The last 6 months had consisted of more tests, probes, and needles than I could count. They finally came up with a prototype serum. I was supposed to get a call back in a few months, once animal trials had concluded, but Mr. Stevens had other plans. Mr. Stevens had been with the company for 2 decades, but he worked in the same position for 1 decade. This serum was his pet project, his chance to move up to an executive role. He had governments, PMCs, and even warlords and mafiosos on the line ready to pay billions for the serum. It appeared that these entities were growing impatient. I'm not surprised, what was supposed to be a 2-week trial had lasted 6 months. I didn't mind. I had no friends, no job, no plans, nor anything better to do. Plus the trials paid my rent. It was the least burdensome of the odd jobs I had taken to make ends meet. If the job were permanent, I'd consider upgrading my living arrangement from 8 roommates to 6. So I got called in much sooner than I expected. The call came from Mr. Stevens himself. I arrive in the lab to see Mr. Stevens standing there alone holding a vial with a luminous green liquid reflecting off of his glistening skin. "Thank you for coming in on such short notice," he said to me. He smiled at me through obvious nerves, but his beady eyes looked quite relieved to see me. I'm in a bind. I underestimated our timeline to a few shady characters, and I may have used up the last of their patience. He took the pocket square out of his stretched-out suit and wiped his brow below his widow's peak. His suit actually fit a little bit better than before, it seemed like he hadn't been eating much. "The animal trials have only just begun," he continued, "but take the serum now. Please." He held the serum up. The glow reflected off of his gray hair, turning it to a muted green. The serum fizzed, smoke emitted from the vial. Everything about the serum's appearance told me that this was not something that should be ingested. We've tried it on a few rats so far, none of them had died yet. They could have only studied the rats for a week at the most, so this wasn't the most reassuring. "And there's $100 million in it for you." He bursted out. Straight from my own pocket. He must have read the hesitancy on my face, but he immediately quelled it. I took the vial and swallowed the serum in one big gulp. I fell to the floor as a scientist runs in. Dr. Finley, the man responsible for most of the poking and probing. "Stevens, what have you done?" I hear before losing consciousness. I wake the next day in the room where most of my tests were done. Dr. Finley is by my side. "Mr. Kyle, it's time for your final tests," he says. I look down at myself, no muscle mass gained. I close my eyes and take a deep breath. I don't feel any different. Dr. Finley pointed to a depowered mech suit sitting in the room, a prototype from one of the company's previous endeavors. The suit was 3 times my size and had to weigh at least 3 tons. "Push that suit toward that outside wall for me," he asked. A ridiculous request. "Sure, Doc, I'll give it a try," I responded. I walked over to the suit and give it a light tap and the thing bursts through the outside wall. It shatters into pieces on impact, with the hole in the wall revealing a crowd of onlookers, separated by a stage where Mr. Stevens stood proudly. The crowd breaks into thunderous applause. Dr. Finley looks in my eyes with piercing sincerity. "You will never be able to touch another human without shattering every bone you touch," he begins. "The shock from the pain would likely send any person into cardiac arrest." He continued, "You're not particularly tough, but you are unfathomably strong. Even if another were to take the serum, you would not be able to touch them without causing great harm. Our lab rats killed each other within minutes, the last one killed itself when it realized there was no escaping its loneliness. Step through that hole in the wall, Mr. Stevens had set up a press conference for when you wake up. I hope the money was worth it.